You're listening to Fox Cities Murder Mayhem, your bi-weekly dose of true crime history in a small rural community of Wisconsin.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Fox Cities Murder Mayhem. I'm Eric.
I'm Gavin.
Gavin, we are here again. We've got notes.
Yep.
What are we talking about? Where are we traveling to, actually? Let's start there.
A couple places. Let's say Oshkosh, generally speaking.
Oh, are we talking about airplanes today?
We're talking about airplanes today.
Ooh.
Yep.
Very exciting episode. This has been one that we've been building up to. So
yeah,
I've been
this
saying,
is
Gavin,
one that,
when's this one going to be ready? And Gavin's been like, it's not there yet.
Yeah, this is one that's coming. This is a spin-off episode from the Dale episode. It's not going to be really obvious why, but it came out of the Dale episode.
So take her away. Let's hear this.
Sure. And my apologies to the listeners. I'm sure you can all tell, but I'm congested as hell this week, so my voice is going to sound weird. Sorry for that, but the show must go on.
Yeah,
so.
it doesn't sound that bad. So you can hear it, but it's not bad.
Yeah. All right. So I'm calling this episode the 3 Henry Dunbars.
Okay.
I'll tell you why, because there's 3 Henry Dunbars. So the first Henry Dunbar is really not important to our story, but we're going to start there anyway.
Do we just start here at the third one just because there's 3 of them and it seems like worthy to have all 3 of them in the story? Is that kind of what you're going for here?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the first one is a man named Henry Snell Dunbar. He was recognized as the top sawyer among the city of Oshkosh's sawmills. Now, I don't know exactly how you get to be the top guy, but he was considered pretty important in the sawmills. And as people who know Oshkosh know, sawmills was kind of Oshkosh's thing. So
is when you say top guy, like top woodcutter or top like in charge?
I didn't get the impression he had any executive role.
Okay.
It just seemed like he was very well respected.
Okay. So maybe like a foreman type deal or something like that.
Yeah. So he was in the sawmills. Then he graduated from that to be an examiner of the woodlands in the Northwood. So apparently he went up and he would actually look at the trees that the sawmills were getting their wood from and finding the best trees.
Okay.
He married May Lewis, who was the daughter of an Oshkosh Fire Department captain. In 1899, he moved to Ashland, Oregon, to again inspect the timber out there for the sawmill industry.
Okay.
But shortly after moving there, he passes away from typhoid fever at 45 years old. He was brought back to Oshkosh and buried there. Not, like I said, not really important, but just kind of giving you a sense of who this family is. And this, I thought the dying of typhoid fever was unusual. I don't know how common that was in 1901, but I don't know of anyone who died of typhoid fever. I feel like we've fixed that problem. So kind of unusual. And at 45 years old, that's pretty young.
Yeah.
Moving on to the second Henry Dunbar, who is the son of this first Henry Dunbar.
Okay.
Now we're going to talk about Oshkosh and airplanes. To do that, we have to talk about Charles Niles, a man known as Do Anything Niles.
Okay.
He was an early stunt pilot. He would fly upside down. He would do loops. He flew a monoplane, which people who don't know, monoplane is like one wing on each side, as opposed to a biplane, which had 2 wings on each side. I guess Today, most planes would be monoplanes, but we don't call them that anymore. Niles would travel around doing his show. He visited Oshkosh during the county fair in 1915. The Aero Club of America, Aero is an aeroplane, called Niles the greatest pilot in the world. Other pilots had tried and failed to do the stunts that he did. One man in Appleton named Lincoln Beachy had tried and crashed and died. So local people tried to do what this guy did, and they would die trying.
And this guy is not local?
He is not local.
Okay.
He is from New York originally.
Okay.
So he's at the county fair in 1915. He comes back to Oshkosh in June 1916. People loved him so much they invited him back. But this time the weather and the wind were not ideal, so he kept his stunts fairly modest. The large crowd grew upset and called him a fake and said that he was yellow.
That he was yellow?
He was yellow.
What does that mean?
Chicken.
Okay.
Niles refused to take these insults and he went back up, completing his loops. But then he lost control of the plane. He crashed into the ground, dying instantly. The newspaper the next day said the crowd were savages because they rushed the plane and tore off souvenirs. One person even stole Niles's cufflinks from his corpse.
Wow.
Thanks, Oshkosh.
Good job, Oshkosh.
Following that, Oshkosh had no fatal plane crashes for over a decade. In fairness, there aren't a lot of airplanes. A man named Richard Lutz, or Richard Lutz, I'm not sure how he would say it, joined the U.S. Army Air Service as an airplane mechanic during World War I. Getting out of World War I, he buys a JN-4D plane called a Jenny. He barnstormed throughout the oil boom towns. He returned to Oshkosh in 1920 and started the city's first airport with another pilot named Florian Manor, and the two teamed up to create a wing-walking act where Florian would fly the plane, and then Richard would walk out on the wing during the flights.
Wow, okay.
In 1927, they started a company, bought 100 acres of land on the south edge of Oshkosh, and established the airport that is today known as Whitman Field.
Okay.
So, the reason none of this is really important to the story, but I'm throwing this in here because I really want people to understand, like, this is the beginning of air flight. Like, there's not even airports yet. This is how early this is for this type of thing. The Department of Commerce created an aeronautics branch in 1926. Not really important, but again, to establish how early this is. Like today we've got like the FAA, and we've got the National Traffic Safety Board or whatever, Transportation Safety Board or whatever it's called, who kind of look into, controlling flights and checking crashes and things like that. These things didn't exist yet. The Department of Commerce handled that, which sounds like a weird department to handle airplanes.
And I would almost imagine Department of Commerce would be a state thing, or...
No, that's federal.
That is federal? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, so when that was created in 1926, they finally went around to the different airports, made sure that they had light beacons, things like that, so you could actually see where the runways were. I mean, really very basic things, but this was new. Mm-hmm. And they tried to build a better system of radio navigation. So, again, there's not a lot of planes at this time, so like planes crashing into other planes isn't really going to happen, but you still want to be able to talk between the plane and the airport.
Right.
So they're kind of making sure those systems are in place.
Mm-hmm.
All of that background to get us to February 1928, the Oshkosh Yellow Cab Taxi Company purchased 2 airplanes from Wichita, Kansas. Henry Dunbar, our person for this episode, the son of the sawmill Henry Dunbar, and another man named Robert Mensing, who was from the Oshkosh School of Aviation, were sent out to Wichita to fly a plane back. Mensing was the experienced pilot, while Dunbar was going to learn the characteristics of the plane on the flight back. The trip was a bit more dangerous than expected with a winter storm coming through on the morning of February 22nd, but Mensing was able to land in Oshkosh at 2:30 that afternoon on a field covered with a foot of snow.
Not bad.
Not bad. The trip was fairly successful, only required one fueling stop, and that was in Kansas City. It's February 1928. April 1928. Now they've got these planes. They've got them in from Wichita.
Mm-hmm.
Dunbar, along with his brothers-in-law, Bill and Bob Butzloff, were running the taxi company. And they had this fancy new plane. It was a blue and silver biplane that they'd got from Wichita. Dunbar was still a student. He technically did not have a pilot's license.
Okay.
Which means normally he's not supposed to have passengers in his plane with him.
Okay.
But the rules were flexible, and Bill and Bob were allowed to be in the plane because they were owners of the plane. So you can't tell the owner of the plane they can't be in the plane.
Okay.
So they were an exception to the no passengers rule.
Okay.
They spent part of the afternoon circling around the city of Oshkosh, which was, it was fun, kind of flying around, seeing the city. And it was fun for those on the ground because in 1928, again, airplanes aren't super common. So when you see an airplane flying by, you're like, whoa, it's an airplane. Pretty cool. Mm-hmm. They returned to land about 5 p.m., so still daytime, good lighting, everything. But just south of the Oshkosh airport, the plane suddenly stalled and went into a tailspin from about 2,000 feet up. Moments later, it crashed. Bill and Henry were dazed and semi-conscious, with what appeared to be only surface-level cuts and bruises, but Bob died instantly from a fractured skull. He was 29 years old. Although people at the airport saw the crash as it happened, the location, which was a bushy field, made it take around 5 minutes for the airport mechanics and paramedics to get there. The nose of the plane was partially buried in the ground from hitting it so hard. Henry Dunbar was slumped over the controls, and the two brothers were pinned inside the wreckage of the passenger cockpit. I don't exactly know what the inside of this plane looks like, but apparently the pilot and the passenger area must be separated off a little bit. Mm-hmm. Removed from the plane, it was found that Dunbar had more cuts than it first appeared, and he likely had a concussion, but overall he was okay. The surviving brother, Bill, had fractured his knee and his ankle in the crash. They didn't immediately know this because he passed out, so this wasn't one of those injuries where you're going to be like, oh my gosh, his arm fell off. Mm-hmm. Like, a knee and an ankle are bad, but they're not going to be something you can immediately see. The doctor handled the men at the scene and then brought them back to the hospital where he took care of them. But to remove the men, they had to be carried by hand across the swampy area in a shallow creek. The ambulance was unable to drive anywhere near the crash site. So even just once they took them 5 minutes to get there, which isn't a long time, but, it could be if it's an emergency.
But then getting them
to get them back, they had to carry them by hand to get them out. So I don't think the guy who died. Mm-hmm. I don't think that would have made any difference. And the other guys survived. So it wasn't a life and death situation, but could be. Those minutes count. The three men had lived together at the Butzloff home at what was Route 1 in Oshkosh. Don't know what Route 1 is, just somewhere on the edge of town. They're all related. The incident was a tragedy, but if there's anything good you can say about it, and I hesitate to say it, Bob was a single man. He had no wife or children. So, whereas the other two men did have wife and children.
So at least the guy
that
did pass, didn't leave a bunch of people.
Yeah, like I when I wrote that, I'm like, I don't want to say like it's good that he died, because it's definitely not good that he died. But of the three, I guess he's the better one to go because he doesn't have like a family he's taking care of. I don't know. Of course, you don't want anybody to go, but
right.
The parents of the two brothers were actually in Minneapolis at the time and did not immediately know about the crash. An anonymous pilot told the newspaper, "Tailspins, such as caused the wreck of the cab company plane, are not in the least bit dangerous, provided the pilot keeps his head. In a descent of 2,000 feet, a pilot can easily come out of such a spin by a simple forward movement of the control lever. Dunbar must have become confused. Had he let go of the controls entirely, the plane would have, in all probability, righted itself.
Mm-hmm.
I wish that I knew who this anonymous pilot was, but I don't because the newspaper didn't say. But he's clearly saying that the cause of this crash is Dunbar doesn't know what he's doing.
Well, and you said right at the beginning that he was still very much learning as a pilot, right?
He was.
And I think we both have to acknowledge the fact that, your plane, I've never flown a plane, but I envision if I fly a plane and something weird starts happening,
Mm-hmm.
There's just instincts that are going to take place that probably aren't the best solution to the problem. You know what I mean? Especially when you're not really sure, 100% sure and comfortable with what you're doing yet.
Yeah.
So.
No, I mean, I'd have to say he's at least partially at fault. I mean, he's the pilot. But, like, it just seems insensitive to me that, like, a guy just crashed, his brother-in-law died, and, like, on the same day they go to this pilot, and he's like, yeah, tailspins aren't a big deal. This guy just doesn't know what he's doing. Like it doesn't seem like a nice thing to say at that moment.
I would 100% agree with you there.
Robert Mensing, who was Dunbar's instructor at the flight school, the guy who had flown with him to Wichita, or flown back from Wichita, I guess, was more generous and said Dunbar was a careful and adept student. He has shown much skill in handling the plane, and he had finished the course of flying instruction with great credit. He had 40 hours of solo flying and was waiting to receive his pilot's license. I don't know if 40 hours is a lot or not, but I mean, his instructor thinks that he was a good pilot.
Mm-hmm.
Richard Lutz, the president of the airport, also said Dunbar was a promising pilot. He pointed out that as an unlicensed pilot, he wasn't supposed to have passengers, but those rules could not be enforced if the passengers co-owned the plane, as I said. So, again, like, his teacher and the guy who runs the airport, they think he's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so the anonymous guy is kind of a jerk. I don't know. A 3-panel board of examiners inspected the plane after the crash. Now, again, there aren't a lot of pilots at the time. So the board of inspectors is Robert Mensing, the guy who runs the flight school, Florian Manor, the guy who earlier was on that wing walking act, and a third man named Elwyn West, who I don't know who that is. I could have looked it up, but either way, the board of examiners has already got two out of 3 guys we already know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
They found that even after the crash, the controls responded correctly. So they also concluded that it was not a mechanical error, but a pilot error. They're like, this plane could still fly, technically. I mean, front end smashed up.
Yeah.
But brother Otto Butzloff speculated that Bob gave his life for Bill. He said Bob always said that if anything happened, he would throw himself in front of Bill. That is apparently what he did, for Bob's body was found in front of Bill's. By that, Bob took the full brunt of the blow and perhaps saved Bill being killed outright. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. The funeral for Bob had a special tribute. 3 pilots flew over and dropped flowers as the body was being brought to the Peace Lutheran Cemetery. The 3 pilots were Elwyn West, Robert Mensing, and now another new guy, David Reed. So we're gonna get to know the names of every pilot in Oshkosh.
Every pilot during this era. Huh?
Yeah. The other 2 people in the crash were not at the funeral because they were still in the hospital. May 3rd, 1928, so this is maybe about a week later, an inspector from the Department of Commerce released his report on the crash. He placed the blame squarely on Dunbar. He said Dunbar was inexperienced, unlicensed, and operating an unlicensed plane. A man from the Department of Commerce said, "It is accidents such as this one that make it hard for us to put flying on a sound, safe basis. There would be fewer accidents. In fact, they would be reduced to a minimum if prospective passengers looked up the record of the pilot and the plane before getting into the cockpit. People should demand to see the pilot's license and the plane's license before the takeoff. That's just dumb.
It sounds like they're blaming this all on the fact that he doesn't have a pilot's license, but clearly before you said he was about to get his pilot's license.
He was very close to getting one, yeah. Yeah, now, so the guy from the Department of Commerce who releases his report puts the blame on Dunbar. This quote is from an official of the Department of Commerce, not the same guy. And again, it's anonymous. The guy is not named in the newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a crap it's a crap position because he's like, the accidents would be reduced to a minimum if prospective passengers looked up the record of the pilot. They know the record of the pilot in this case.
Yeah, it's their family member.
Yeah, it's like they didn't hire him to be their taxi driver. Like they knew who he was. It had them not knowing had nothing to do with it. Dunbar was able to speak to the public on May 8th. He was out of the hospital and good to go. He said it was not his inexperience that crashed the plane, but a failure of the plane's ailerons. I'm probably saying that word wrong, but I know nothing about planes. but on whether I'm saying it right or not, on a plane's wing, there's like the little flaps on the backside of the wing.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying. He's saying those didn't work properly. Okay. So it wasn't a mechanical issue so much as just that little piece. He said he was in control the whole time. He was never afraid, didn't panic. And he said despite this crash and his brother-in-law dying, he planned to continue being a pilot. 4 years later, Henry is flying a plane, and he crashes again while transporting 2 employees of a local oil company. All 3 men received cuts and bruises, but were able to walk away okay. After that, it doesn't seem like he flies that much anymore.
Okay.
Last I see is after that he moves to Lake Tomahawk, so he moves out of the Oshkosh area.
It seems like you wouldn't. It seems like even at this era, they must have had a rule that you can only have so many crashes before we're just going to take your pilot's license away.
Maybe.
You would think.
I don't know.
But they didn't specifically say anywhere that his pilot license was taken away. It's just he stopped flying. There's no record of him flying.
He might have still flown after that, but it seems like he wasn't doing it professionally anymore.
Okay.
The third Henry Dunbar. This is Henry James Dunbar, who is the son of the second Henry Dunbar. So Henry the first, second, and third.
So what do you think Henry the Third would do?
What he would do?
Yeah, for a job. Like what is it? What is the obvious thing he's going to get into?
Well, I know what you're suggesting. What do you think he's going to do?
Well, I think the last thing, if I'm the son of a guy that got in 2 plane crashes, the last thing I'm going to do is become a pilot.
Oh, okay.
So what does this Henry Dunbar do?
Well, there might be some piloting involved. So the third Henry is a veteran of World War II. He served as a merchant marine. I don't exactly know what the merchant marines do, but you probably have a better idea.
Not really.
No, you don't know what they do either?
No, sorry.
Oh. Because, yeah, I no disrespect to the merchant marines, but I don't really know what they do.
I don't either.
Okay. You never worked with one?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. Well, anyway. He married a woman named Shirley. And from April 1963 to 1966, so just a brief 3 years, he headed the instrument department. I'm not sure what that is, but he headed the instrument department at Thilmany Pulp and Paper in Kaukauna.
Nice.
Yeah.
Got to bring it back to Kaukauna, right?
Yeah. After that, he moved out to Fremont, where he opened Dunbar's Supper Club, which was apparently a pretty popular supper club. So that's 1966, he opens the supper club. We're going to jump ahead 11 years. So 11 years, he's running the supper club. Everything is fine and good.
Before you jump ahead,
yeah.
I got an AI answer on what the merchant marines
All
are.
right, this is going to be good.
So there's a civilian mariner and commercial ships that transport goods and people, forming the backbone of global trade, but also serving as the fourth arm of national defense by supporting the military and marine in wartime. So basically,
that's really vague.
They're a private shipping company that happens to work with the military every once in a while, it sounds like.
They're like a contractor?
I don't know if they're necessarily a contractor, because it sounds like during peacetime they just move cargo around. But then during wartime they might step up and move, soldiers and stuff around.
Okay.
So
yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't know, but I mean, it was written as though like he was definitely doing this as a military service. So, yeah. Okay. Running the supper club in Fremont, everything's fine and good. Then he takes up a hobby of flying planes between November 4th and December 31st, 1977. So this is like just under 2 months. Henry Dunbar III takes 11 trips between Silver Bay, Minnesota and Waupaca.
Okay.
Don't know why. Like, this is never really made clear in the articles why he's frequently going back and forth to Silver Bay, Minnesota.
Did you look up and see what Silver Bay, Minnesota is?
Yes.
Is there anything significant that would suggest why?
I don't know that. Silver Bay, Minnesota is not a very big town at all, which is probably why no one's ever heard of it. But it's like north of Duluth. If you were like, say, in Ashland, Wisconsin, and you flew like north over Lake Superior, you would hit it.
Okay.
So it's like way up in Minnesota. It's not quite to Canada, but it's like way up there.
Okay.
I don't know any reason you would go there, but he clearly had some reason to go there. I don't know. January 2nd, 1978, he's now going to take his 12th trip, and he gets to Silver Bay around 3:45 p.m. in a Piper Cherokee 140, which, I mean, you'd have to look this up to see what a Piper Cherokee 140 looks like, because I can't show you on a podcast, but it's a smaller plane.
Okay.
This is definitely maybe like a 4-person plane.
Okay.
That he rented from Joel Sarnke of Waupaca. A few days earlier, he had brought 2 men with him to Minnesota, but they were not on the return flight. Again, I don't know why he's bringing people to and from Minnesota. This is never made clear in the newspaper articles. A later report said he had 28 hours of flight time in this type of aircraft. So, again, I don't know if that's a lot or not. It doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it's something.
Mm-hmm.
His intended return destination was the Waupaca Municipal Airport, which required him crossing over Lake Superior and going past Ashland, as I said, and Wausau.
Mm-hmm.
But he never arrives back in Waupaca. So they know that he brought the 2 guys to Minnesota, and then he turned around and flew back. But he never arrived back. A few days after this, the Wisconsin Civil Air Patrol urged snowmobilers to be on the lookout for a crashed plane. This is January 1978. So, snowmobilers, be on the lookout. Knowing the plane would be north of Waupaca, it was felt that a search on snow may be more successful than traveling on the roads. There were also about 15 planes making regular sweeps of the area, but the visibility and weather conditions were not optimal. So, yeah, anyone who's familiar with like the Wisconsin Northwoods, definitely you could understand that in the winter a snowmobiler might have a better chance of stumbling on something than you would just like driving down the back roads, because there's huge chunks of land up there that you just can't really drive to.
Right. Absolutely.
By mid-January, the search expanded to the southern edge of Ironwood, Michigan. A resident there told authorities he saw a plane in trouble going down about January 2nd, which would be the right day. This would be east of the expected flight path, but not so far east that it would be impossible.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he saw what he thinks he saw. Later, they do find the plane later. Spoiler, they do find the plane later. And it'll actually be about 26 miles away. I don't know if you could see a plane going on 26 miles away. Maybe you could. I mean, it's the sky. Maybe you could see quite far. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So
I don't think so, though, because I think at 26 miles, you might be able to see something going down, but you wouldn't know it was an airplane.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So I don't know if that's in the visible range or not, but a month after going missing, about 10,000 square miles had been searched, including by Major Wilmer Zimmerman of Appleton and Lieutenant Leonard Deering of Kaukauna in the Civil Air Patrol. They focused largely on the Mattoon area, but the plane being white was camouflage against the snow. So yes, not only is this area very wooded and very wintry, but apparently the plane is also white.
So it blends right in with everything, huh?
Yeah. Major Zimmerman from Appleton said that he had known Dunbar for 30 years, and even their parents were friends. So this was kind of personal to him.
Mm-hmm.
The plane and Henry's body were finally found in the second half of April, around 10 miles west of Mellon in the National Forest in Ashland County, which would be 150 miles away from Mattoon. So why they were searching by Mattoon, not sure. That was not the right spot.
He must have went way off course at this if he ended up 100 miles away from where they were looking.
Yeah.
I would think.
A man named Tom Nelson of Ashland, who had a cabin in the area, was the one to find the wreckage. Dunbar was 50 years old at the time. He's buried in Riverside Cemetery, Oshkosh, and the services were performed at his funeral by a chaplain of the Civil Air Patrol. So even got a pilot pastor to do his funeral. That's all I got. Besides the one thing that I did not mention, which is how this relates to the Dale episode. Now, one of these Henry Dunbars, and I think it's the third one. I'm pretty sure it's the third one.
Yes.
His daughter marries the son of the woman who was in the explosion in Dale.
Right.
That is the connection here. So this guy has no real direct connection to Dale, but the woman who was in the Dale bank explosion had a son named Kenneth, and Kenneth married the daughter of Henry Dunbar. So in an in-law sort of way, he's connected to the Dale situation.
Yes, and I think we've mentioned this before on this podcast that we had a family member, a descendant of all these people, reach out to us and tip us off to this story, and that's how we're here telling it right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, Gavin did not just stumble upon this. This was just pointed to us.
No, this was definitely one that was brought to my attention, really brought to your attention, I suppose. And yeah, it probably wouldn't have made my radar because somebody dying in a plane crash is a story. I don't know if it's a Fox Cities Murder and Mayhem story, but it's a story. But both a father and son being involved in two separate fatal crashes, now I think there's a story there.
And don't forget that the other son, or the second Henry Dunbar, had two crashes under his belt, right? So I mean, that's crazy. And I think it's very warranted because I don't know if I told you this part of the story because I find this funny.
What do you got?
So the descendant that reached out to us, did I tell you what she does for a living?
No, I don't think you did.
She's a flight attendant.
Whoa.
So she's telling me all these stories about all these people being in plane crashes. And I'm like, wait. So you have like all these family members that were in plane crashes and some of them died. And I'm like, and you chose to become a flight attendant. And she's like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I'm like, no, it does not. So.
Well, I mean, the kind of planes a flight attendant is going to be on, I would imagine, are significantly safer.
Yeah. I don't think that I would. I mean, I guess I wouldn't be alarmed by it because flying is extremely safe at this point in time and stuff like that. It's just ironic to me.
Well, that's the thing. Like these the planes in these stories here, like these are what I refer to as Cessna type planes. These are 2-person, 4-person planes, which, you know, a strong gust of wind can kind of push them off. When you're talking a 747 or something like that, those don't crash. I mean, they do. Obviously, plane crashes happen, but it's pretty rare.
I'm really curious because, you know, all of this flying, you said this is very early on in flying.
Yes.
Not around, and it's all happening in Oshkosh.
Yes.
When you maybe you already know this just by history.
I don't know this, but I feel like I know where this question's going. But.
The immediate thing I thought of is it wasn't one of the Dunbars, but it was the guy that was from New York that was supposed to be the best pilot in the world.
Sure.
And he was coming to Oshkosh to fly. So was that kind of like what strummed EAA to being here? Or do you know at all the history of the EAA, and does this play into it at all?
I didn't look into that. I probably should have looked into that because that would fit really well in this episode. But I don't think there's a direct connection there. The EAA, I assume listeners, if you're from Wisconsin, I assume you know this. Maybe you don't, but the EAA is like the Experimental Aircraft Association.
Yeah, Aviation Association.
Aviation Association. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's traditionally it was like a group of guys who modified planes and did things to try to test out new things with varying degrees of success. Now it's kind of just, I mean, it still probably does that, but now it's basically just a celebration of airplanes. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that the guys who started that had a direct connection to this. Now, they are by Whitman Field, so it's the same area.
Right, and you had said, I think you had said one of these people actually played a role in building Whitman Field,
yes,
right?
Yes.
So, I mean, that's where kind of a lot of this is coming from, is that it sounds like you're seeing the aviation culture being built by these people in Oshkosh.
Well, let me take a quick peek, because I believe that the EAA started much later. I don't think it's as old as you might think it is.
That wouldn't surprise me. I was just more curious is this what eventually becomes the EAA?
Yeah. Okay. So the EAA was started in 1953. So it's much later than our second Henry. And not only that, it was started in Hales Corners, which is kind of by Milwaukee.
Okay.
And it just moved to Oshkosh later.
Okay.
1959, it moved to Rockford, Illinois, and it moved to Oshkosh in 1970.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, yeah, like, it's not really a direct link. It being in Oshkosh is, I guess, more of a coincidence than anything.
Yeah. That kind of disappoints me, because I always figured that there was a story behind how Oshkosh ended up with it. But it sounds like somebody started this operation and just kept moving it around, and that EAA in Oshkosh is where they just settled on.
Yeah. I just looking that up, I just disappointed myself because I too was under the impression that it was started in Oshkosh, and it would have been like two guys in a garage being like, let's build some funky airplanes. But, still Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So cool on that. But apparently Oshkosh just happens to be the one which good for them, because it's a huge draw. Mm-hmm. But they can't really claim to have started it. So
I guess, the final thing I would say about this episode is, it wasn't a ravish murder or anything like that, but I think that this is, first of all, this shows you gives you a great look into the history of airplanes, kind of, a little bit. And
I'd love to do a deeper dive into the early airport and airplane situation, I mean, in Oshkosh or elsewhere. But, I didn't want to go way off track.
I think that would be interesting too, because you have got to imagine that getting air travel to where it is today, I mean, there had to have been some bad things that happened that we don't know about, because, I mean, that's just ripe for disaster, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like when you think about, at this point, air traffic controllers land the planes because they're the only ones that know where all the planes are, so you don't crash into each other.
Yeah.
And it's when this first started, this must have been messy, and mistakes, I guaranteed, were made.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. In the 1920s, apparently there's only 5 people who can actually fly a plane in Oshkosh. So it doesn't require a lot of sophistication and coordination to make sure they don't crash into each other, because you just got to know where the 5 guys are, and probably 2 of them are at the airport on the ground. So that's not complicated. But yeah, at what point is it suddenly, oh, we've got people coming and going at all hours of the day. We should probably have a system here.
And I have maybe you have a better idea, but is that 50s, 60s, 70s where you have regular travel? Or is it even earlier than that?
I know that, commercial airplanes are pre-World War II.
Are they? Okay.
But they're not super common.
Yeah. But I would say by the 70s, you at least have business travelers commonly traveling around the country, right?
Yes.
So that at that point, you have real air. You got to have a pretty good system.
I don't know when it went from being a thing that was still we're kind of figuring it out to being, a very common thing. Mm-hmm. I think by the 60s, it's a very common thing. Probably in the 50s it was too, but definitely by the 60s. Keeping in mind, when I think of airplanes, I don't think of commercial airplanes. I think of military airplanes. For whatever reason, that's what pops in my head when I think airplanes. And World War II, 1940s, airplanes are fully functional.
Yeah.
They're flying hundreds of miles, and they're doing, they're transporting people. They're not experimental by any means at that point. They're fully fledged airplanes.
Right.
So the guys that come out of World War II who know how to fly planes, there's no reason that you don't have an entire commercial air service built around all these guys who flew planes and now don't have a reason to fly them anymore.
Right. Totally. And I don't think it was because of lack of pilots. I just think that I know even in the 70s, it was pretty much it was pretty much business traveling. There wasn't a lot of people doing resident, like we are today, where we just fly somewhere.
Yeah. This. I don't want to go down this path too much, just because I'm not super knowledgeable, and I don't want to say something where a listener is going to be you're an idiot.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I generally get the impression that if you were on a plane in the 70s, you were there for business.
Yeah.
You were flying New York, LA doing business. And if you're going to Disney World, you're not on a plane, you're on an RV.
Yeah.
Or you're loaded into the station wagon and you're driven there.
And I'm sure that there are people back then that were using planes. It wasn't like you couldn't use a plane for that purpose, but that's not generally what, what the planes were there for.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But like I said, I don't want to talk about that too much, because I don't just sound like an idiot. And that's just mostly I've never looked into it, and I didn't live in the 70s. So things that are going to be really obvious common knowledge to some people, I don't know anything about.
Absolutely. But I do think it's interesting, just because I think that history would be very fascinating to see. So, but once again, who would have thought you could find two people related, father-son duo that had been in multiple plane crashes within, 20 minutes of where we live right now. So
that's right.
Another amazing story. We want to thank the person that brought this story to our attention.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, when I post this online, maybe I'll flesh it out a little bit with a little bit more Oshkosh plane stuff. Not much. Like I said, I don't really want to go down that path, because that's a whole thing in itself. And there's probably already a book written on that.
Yeah.
So you can probably go to the EIA and buy a whole book on Oshkosh airplanes. But definitely kind of, I love the idea of these early days where, you know, oh yeah, you've got 30 hours of flight time. You're good. Let's go. Whereas now, like, to fly like a commercial plane is like how many thousands of hours are you supposed to log?
I don't even know. I have no clue. To be honest with you, what it is for pilots these days.
I know it's a lot.
So is it?
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, that'll wrap this episode up, and we want to thank everybody for their continued support of this podcast. We will be back with another episode in 2 weeks, and thanks for tuning in.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to Fox Cities Murder and Mayhem. Join us in 2 weeks for another exciting episode of Murder and Mayhem.